We start a huge fitness center in Gangnam, Seoul, shown from outside in the evening. Inside the building, in a small staff office, the employees are arguing loudly. One muscular trainer is live streaming from the gym, acting as a fitness YouTuber under the name Best Gym Rat TV. He sets up a mukbang on stream with honey chicken and beer. He bites into the chicken and cracks open the beer. From behind, he sits at his desk, keeps eating the chicken and sipping the beer while watching the screen. His physique shows it. Kang Hyuk is completely focused on training his body. But he wasn't born a gym rat. There's a reason he became like this. In the past, he suffered a serious injury and could barely walk, so he had to build muscle just to move properly again. He was badly injured during a Special Forces mission. He started rehab and regular chiropractic treatment. He expanded into all kinds of exercise and studied nutrition to rebuild his body. After years of rehab and study, he becomes Gangnam's top rehab specialist and a nationally known fitness trainer. Now he's streaming mukbangs in the staff room, worrying about his muscles while still stuffing himself. All of this started because COVID hit and crushed the fitness business. Lockdowns and membership loss put huge financial pressure on all his gyms. To cover costs, Kang Hyuk turns to streaming as a side job. Even then, the money isn't enough to support 5 locations, and he quietly wipes away tears off camera. He ends the stream with a big smile and YouTuber-style sign-off. The moment the camera turns off, he looks tense and worried about tomorrow. Only the empty chicken box and beer can are left. He frets about the calories and can't just start training after drinking. He sighs, thinking about how badly things have turned out. Flashback to the hospital. The doctor tells him his hair loss is from stress and he needs rest. The diagnosis shocks him like a lightning strike, leaving him frozen. The doctor explains that, despite his fitness, stress has pushed Kang Hyuk's body to its limit. He's told to reduce his workload before it gets worse. The warning: if he keeps this up, he'll end up completely bald. He imagines himself bald and freaks out, thinking his love life is over. The doctor gives him medicine, but repeats that reducing stress and resting is what really matters. At home, he sits in his training room, overwhelmed, wondering how he's supposed to rest. He admits he has no idea how to rest since his whole life has been work and training. He shrinks into chibi mode, scrolling on his phone, trying to think of what to do. Seen from behind, he keeps browsing options and rejecting them one by one. While scrolling on his phone, he remembers he used to love Muram novels. He grew up poor, raised by his grandparents. Back then, his favorite escape was borrowing Muram novels from the neighborhood bookstore. Young Kang Hyuk happily reads Muram books on the bookstore floor. Those days are a warm memory. Back in the present, he scrolls his phone and remembers how his grandpa used to scold him for hanging out there so much. He spots his favorite Manga author's works in an app and gets excited, remembering how much he loved those stories. He notices a new Manga title by his favorite author, Shaolin Monk Chronicles. He's surprised. He's never seen this series before. Reading the short summary, he hovers over the first chapter, thinking about checking it out. He starts reading the new Manga novel, fully focused. Very quickly, he gets hooked and loves it. Flashback. Even during his army days, reading Manga stories was the one thing that made him feel relaxed. He realizes he's been non-stop training others and never really resting. Reading this novel, he wonders when he last felt this relaxed. It feels like he's a kid again, sitting among stacks of books and reading for fun. He dozes off on the floor while reading. He's out cold, lying spread out beside his phone. In the middle of the night, the phone suddenly shines a bright beam of light over his body. In the dark, a voice keeps calling, "Moo Jin, wake up." Kang Hyuk stirs as he hears someone shout Moo Jin's name for morning exercise. He jerks awake and finds himself in a dojo-like place, shocked as someone orders him to join the morning workout. Kang Hyuk looks around, confused by where he is. He notices a shaved head and monk robes in front of him. A young monk boy in orange robes panics and urges Moo Jin to hurry before they get scolded. Kang Hyuk panics, thinking some random, shaved kid has appeared in his house. The monk boy insists he's older and bigger, leaving Kang Hyuk baffled. Quick stat screen. Choi Kang Hyuk, 180 centimeters, 90 kilograms, X, Special Forces, now a personal trainer with around 8 to 10% body fat. Kang Hyuk grabs the kid, still convinced some stranger snuck into his place. He starts wondering how the kid even got into his house. Then he finally looks around and realizes the room is an old-style temple building, not his apartment at all. We zoom out. 2 small monks stand in the empty temple room. Kang Hyuk realizes he's in a shaved child's body and feels his bald head in shock. The other monk freaks out as Mu Jin suddenly acts strange. He panics about his shaved head in this strange old temple. He remembers the other kid called him Mu Jin. It clicks. Mu Jin is the main character of the Mura novel he was just reading. He freaks out, realizing his muscular adult body is gone and he's stuck as Mu Jin. Close up, his eye widens as he reaches a conclusion. He calms himself, deciding this must just be a dream caused by binge reading Mura novels, while the other monk is confused. The other monk urges him to hurry, and Kang Hyuk / Mu Jin agrees to go along. He glances at the kid and, relaxing a bit, finds him genuinely cute. Both shaved kids run out together toward the morning training grounds. He decides it's just a dream and runs with the other monk, planning to enjoy it. A furious master yells at them for being late and promises punishment. All the young monks line up in the courtyard as the instructor orders everyone into position. Mu Jin apologizes, but he's stunned at how real everything feels. The instructor announces they'll start with horse stance, and Mu Jin links it to squats. Close up as he tenses, getting ready for the training to start. All the kid monks drop into horse stance, legs shaking in pain. Mu Jin copies them, then realizes their form is terrible. The trainer in him kicks in, and he thinks they'll destroy their knees if they keep squatting like that. Flashback. During rehab, Kang Hyuk rebuilt himself with proper form, focusing hard on lower body and core work. He used to get annoyed seeing trainers ignore legs and core and only train upper body. Back in the temple, he critiques the kid's horse stance. Legs too wide, backs rounded, posture wrong. For a serious gym guy like him, it's unbearable to watch. The instructor lectures that lower body training is the base of martial arts. He explains that without a strong, stable stance, you can't properly use power in punches or staff techniques. Mu Jin sees the mismatch between the speech and their bad posture and decides he can't ignore such wrong form. He clenches his teeth, deciding to step in even if it causes trouble. Since he thinks it's just a dream, he snaps and loudly calls everyone out for not knowing proper exercise. The senior monk and other instructors turn toward him, clearly not happy with his outburst. His monk friend panics, asking why Mu Jin is suddenly snapping. The instructor storms over, furious that he interrupted training. All the senior monks yell at him, accusing him of whining and ordering him back in a stance. Even as they yell at him, he can literally feel their martial arts aura, but it doesn't scare him. He doubles down, thinking he just said the truth about their bad form and needs to stand by it. Flashback to the gym. He's dealt with annoying clients before, so arguing with a few monks feels easier than handling those kinds of members. The senior monk points at him, accusing him of insulting Shaolin training itself. Kang Hyuk is impressed how real the dream feels and decides to answer like a serious martial artist. He calmly explains that with their current stance, they'll wreck their knee cartilage and suffer joint damage later. The instructor dismisses his warning, calling it a weak person's excuse. Mu Jin is taken aback by that answer. He calmly argues back. Martial arts exists so weak people can strengthen body and mind, so saying the weak can't learn it makes no sense. The senior monk steps in, defending Shaolin's method, saying their harsh training is different and meant for self-improvement and enlightenment. Kang Hyuk pretends to understand, then twists his words, asking if that means weak people can't reach enlightenment here, cornering the monk. Flustered, the monk yells back that they push their bodies so hard precisely to toughen their minds. The senior monk explains that humans are mentally weak, so Shaolin uses harsh training to harden their minds for future hardships. Mu Jin smiles and says, "So we only need to train our minds when we're young, right?" The monk is stunned as Mu Jin points out that his logic sounds exactly like that. He argues that damaging their knees while young will only leave them with ruined bodies when they're old. He asks if suffering now really guarantees enlightenment. The other disciples start whispering in doubt, and the instructor gets angry at him. Mujin points at an older monk and mocks him, saying he must have suffered a lot to still not reach enlightenment at that age. The instructor is stunned. Behind Mujin, we see Kang Hyuk's adult image backing him up as Mujin keeps pointing confidently. Another monk explodes in anger, yelling for Mujin to say that directly to Ha-young, the first-class disciple. Ha-young explodes in rage, aura flaring like fire as he roars. His shout sends a shockwave over the training ground. Mujin and the others reel from the pressure. Mujin sweats, stunned, realizing just how overwhelming a first-class disciple's presence is. Ha-young's roar explodes across the courtyard. All the kids clutch their ears while he stands in front with his aides. Ha-young walks toward Mujin, saying he heard the whole argument and that Buddhist martial arts are usually just a tool for self-training and enlightenment. He adds that Shaolin's martial arts are different from those, and Mujin looks up and asks what's different about them. The senior monk explains that their Shaolin martial arts are meant to help people and drive away evil. Mujin gives a small, awkward smile and asks if they're really training in a way that ruins their knees just to protect others. The first-class disciple looks at him quietly, surprised that a kid is questioning him so directly. The head monk quietly judges Kang Hyuk, deciding he could become a bad influence on the other kids, but can't be punished openly. He raises a finger, officially putting Kang Hyuk on the spot and setting up a test for him. The monks corner Kang Hyuk with a new responsibility. If he criticized their training, he now has to demonstrate a better way himself. The senior monk thrusts his finger forward, clearly choosing someone for a challenge. He stands tall against the sunset, pointing toward the training ground while Mujin looks up at him, tense but trying to stay confident. Mujin's face tightens in panic, sweat forming as he realizes he's about to be matched against a Shaolin-trained opponent. The elder monk decides it should be a fair test, so he picks a boy who entered the temple at the same time as Mujin and calls Mugung forward. Mugung jogs over while the elder announces a challenge. Mujin will get 7 days to train using his correct method and then prove it. Mugung cracks his knuckles and takes a fighting stance, clearly eager to spar with Mujin after those 7 days. Mujin looks at Mugung and realizes this guy is a whole different weight class from him. He instantly knows the fair match is stacked against him. He figures out the senior's plan. Use someone from the same intake as an excuse so Mujin can't complain about the pairing. Facing the tall senior and the bulky Mugung, Mujin glares up at them, thinking what a nasty, petty senior he's ended up with. The senior monk smugly thinks his plan boxed Mujin in and agrees to the match. Mujin accepts without hesitation, confident he can beat the other disciple. Mugung glares at him, secretly vowing to crush Mujin in the fight a week later. The head monk accepts Mujin's decision and notes he's chosen the difficult path. He restarts the morning training, and all the young monks bow and shout their response. Mujin's friend runs to him, worried, and tells him he should just apologize to Ha-young. Instructor calls Muyel back to formation. Muyel hurries off while Mujin just watches. The older disciples glare and whisper, annoyed that Mujin acted out and challenged their seniors. Ha-young stares at Mujin's back, deciding to settle everything in the match 7 days later. During group training, Mujin keeps drilling his own deep stance while the other kids tremble and gasp around him. A senior disciple marches over, gets in Mujin's face for doing a different exercise, but Mujin calmly says the first-class monk allowed it, which shuts him up. Ha-young steps in, reminds the senior of their promise, and orders him to let Mujin train his own way, so the guy backs off, annoyed. Mujin's drenched in sweat, breathing steady, and smirking like he's still full of energy while holding his stance. He looks at the monks beside him and casually calls out their form, saying they're doing the exercise wrong. We see the whole group squatting with bad posture, and Mujin warns that if they keep training like that, they'll destroy their knees and no one will take responsibility later. After training, Mujin stares ahead, realizing something's off about this place. He looks down at his food tray, just a bowl of rice and a side of greens. He understands the situation now. The Shaolin meals are pure vegetarian, and this is all he'll be eating here. Everyone sits in the dining hall, chanting thanks for the meal. Mujin finally realizes monks only eat vegetables and starts panicking inside about where his protein is supposed to come from. He stares down at the tiny side dish with a dead serious face, judging it hard like, this is it. As the smell of the food actually hits him, he freezes. If this is really just a dream, why can he smell everything so clearly? Now he's not so sure it is a dream. Mujin stands in front of the food, sniffing. He admits it actually smells pretty good. He tries to act tough, telling himself it's just vegetables, nothing special. His body starts trembling from hunger and temptation as he keeps staring at the food. Mujin slams his bowl on the table, furious, and explodes about how unfair this veggie-only meal is. He stands up and argues with the monk, complaining that after a whole morning of hard training, this kind of meal is way too harsh. The supervising monks snap back, scolding him for causing a scene during mealtime and calling his behavior disrespectful. The senior monk slams his fist on the table and looms over Mujin, ready to punish him, while Mujin just glares back, annoyed that they're mad after serving such a miserable meal. Close-up of Mujin, face twitching and fired up, thinking that all this intense training is pointless without proper protein to back it up. He storms out, fuming and determined, stomping down the hall so his hard-earned morning workout doesn't end up wasted. Mujin is about to snap at the senior when a loud, fake cough and laugh come from behind him, making him stiffen and look nervous. The senior monk turns, confused at the interruption, then suddenly realizes who it is and panics. The food hall leader, Hyun-mun, walks in, introduced as the one in charge of all meals in Shaolin. Hyun-mun smiles at Mujin and casually says he can tell the kid is really hungry. The hall leader notices Mujin staring at his bowl and gently says he can always get more food if he's still hungry. Mujin stares at the vegetables, clearly unsatisfied. Thinking it's just a kid complaining, the hall leader smiles kindly and decides to let the earlier outburst slide. Mujin suddenly speaks up and asks if they have any protein, and then quickly corrects himself, specifically asking for chicken breast, leaving everyone around the table confused. Everyone at the table freezes as Hyun-mun and the senior monk stare at Mujin in shock, thinking he's spouting insane nonsense. Muyol tugs on Mujin's sleeve, worried, asking why he's acting so weird and if something's wrong with him. Mujin snaps back, shouting that they need protein if they're going to keep training like this. Mujin's friend grabs his arm, nervous, and tells him to just eat quietly before he gets in more trouble. Hyun-mun looks at him, and in the old man's eye, Mujin imagines his own body and muscles on the line if he doesn't get proper food. Mujin suddenly pauses, sweating. Something about his body in this dream feels off, and he realizes something isn't normal. Mujin thinks back on training and realizes his body really gets tired here. He notices he can smell the food and reasons that if this were a dream, he'd have woken up already, so this might actually be real. He decides first priority is fixing this no-protein, all-veggies situation. Mujin finally accepts he's really a Shaolin novice and thinks he has to handle this properly in front of everyone. He stands up, bows his head deeply, sweating, and apologizes, saying he only acted strange because he was starving. The supervising monk quickly backs him up, blaming it on training fatigue, while Hyun-mun watches with a knowing look as the monk starts apologizing to him too. Mujin clenches his fists, forces a polite tone, and asks the hall leader if he can have extra beans and mushrooms for protein. The hall leader just stares at him in stunned silence, like he can't believe what he heard. Everyone assumes Mujin is nuts, but the narration says that dream or not, he's decided one thing for sure. He needs protein. Mujin lazily balances his brush on his lip, half-heartedly chanting along. He's in scripture class, right after brutal morning training, exhausted and thinking this routine is way too harsh. He admits to himself he's really inside the novel's world and starts worrying about how he's ever going to get back home. Mu Jin suddenly gets an idea. If he's trapped inside the novel, maybe he'll be freed once the story finishes. He starts hyping himself up, remembering that Mu Jin is the main character with crazy talent, and Shaolin is the top orthodox sect. We see how huge and legendary Shaolin is, and just as he's feeling good about it, something clicks in his memory, and he's about to recall an important plot detail. Mu Jin looks down at his scripture book and sees it's a mess, ink smeared all over the page. He stiffens, realizing something's wrong. He narrows his eyes, thinking that if there's a problem, it isn't the book itself. Mu Jin glances left and right at the monks sitting beside him, then back at his ruined page, clearly deciding they're the cause of this. Mu Jin feels all the other monks staring and realizes he's already been singled out. He runs through everything that's happened in his head and accepts there's no backing down now. He decides he'll win the spar and make everyone admit his training method is right. Outside the hall, the senior monk rushes up to Hyun Mun, shocked by Mu Jin's behavior. Hyun Mun chuckles that the kid is unusual, while the monk sighs and apologizes for him. Hyun Mun smiles and asks what the senior really thinks about Mu Jin. The senior monk says he'll keep his word. After 7 days of training, Mu Jin will fight Mu Gung and prove whether his claims about training are right or not. Ha-young walks down the corridor with Hyun Mun. Hyun Mun praises his idea, and Ha-young says they can't just punish a disciple outright as Buddhists. Hyun Mun asks about Mu Jin's opponent. Ha-young says Mu Gung is the strongest of this year's new disciples and will be the one sparring with Mu Jin. Narration explains Shaolin brings in hundreds of new disciples every year. Many drop out because they can't handle the harsh training, and some only learn the basics before being sent to outer sects. Shaolin recruits a lot of kids, but in the end, only about 10% are good enough to stay in the main temple. Because there are so many trainees, the first-class disciples and elders usually don't even know the new monks' names at this stage. Mu Gung is an exception. He's one of the rare newcomers famous enough that the seniors already know who he is. We see Mu Gung from behind, muscles tense and eyes glowing red, making it clear he's a monster compared to the other kids. The senior monk looks at Mu Jin and basically decides, yeah, Mu Gung will beat this kid down and teach him a lesson. Bandaged training shoes step onto the courtyard tiles. Mu Jin has finished his week of special training and walks to the duel ground. In front of the temple gate, the senior monk stands between Mu Jin and Mu Gung, announcing that the 7 days are over and it's time for their match. Mu Gung glares with a stiff, serious face, while Mu Jin looks relaxed and slightly smiling. The elder addresses both of them, officially starting the showdown. While the spar day crowd gathers, Mu Yel spots Mu Jin acting weird and asks what he's doing. Mu Jin is on the ground, calmly warming up and stretching his legs for the upcoming fight. Mu Yel doesn't get the word stretching, so Mu Jin quickly sells it as a serious martial arts move, calling it a tendon extension technique. Mu Jin breaks it down for him. Stretching is what you do before real training, so your muscles and tendons don't get shocked. We see a visual of different stretch poses and how it helps flexibility and joint movement. Then Mu Jin pats his friend and tells him to try it too, to warm up properly before they start. Mu Yel tries to copy Mu Jin's stretching, but ends up in a weird half-plank pose while the others stare, confused about what he's doing. Mu Jin tells him to move his legs, and Mu Yel quickly shifts into the proper seated stretch, copying the form surprisingly well for a beginner. Training starts nearby. Mu Gung unleashes a series of rapid punches, and everyone turns to watch his powerful combo, while Mu Jin studies him carefully. Mu Gung steps up and starts throwing rapid, heavy punches, each one sharp enough to whip the air. The juniors watching are amazed, talking about how strong and cool he looks as his fist cuts through the air. Mu Jin watches from the side, sweating a little. He realizes that if one of those punches lands on him, it's going to hurt badly. With only a week of his own training behind him, he starts doubting if he can really beat someone on Mu Gung's level. Mu Jin watches Mu Gung's punches and tenses up, worrying about how he can possibly win. As the view shifts over the temple roofs, an idea suddenly pops into his head. Facing the senior and Mu Gung again, Mu Jin steadies himself and decides he'll rely on that one plan to beat him. The senior monk studies Mu Jin with a serious face, realizing the kid actually trained hard instead of slacking off. Flashback to nighttime. Mu Jin is off to the side, pressed against a tree while others do normal drills, and the monk quietly notes that he's been training in his own weird way. Mu Jin keeps ramming his shoulder into the tree, saying he's working on a move to drop Mu Gung in one hit, while his friend watches, stunned that he's really doing this. The elder remembers asking Mu Jin why he kept rubbing his body against that tree, totally confused by his weird training. Back to the present. Hai Yung clears his throat and thinks Mu Gung will easily put Mu Jin in his place. Mu Gung sees Hai Yung looking his way, blushes and gets hyped, thinking the master is acknowledging him. Mu Gung is hyped up, thinking he'll use this fight to climb the ranks over Mu Jin. Mu Jin just exhales, drops into that low, loose stance he practiced, joints popping as he settles. Then he straightens up, hands on his hips, chest out, acting all confident like, yeah, I'm ready. Come on. Mu Jin rolls his shoulders, all fired up, and asks if they can start the spar right now. The elder glares down at him, thinking this kid is acting way too cocky, while Mu Gung's irritation spikes. Mu Gung marches forward with heavy steps, vowing to show everyone just how huge the gap between them really is. Mu Jin takes a deep breath, eyes locked on Mu Gung, and mentally signals the start of the match. Mu Gung's face turns red with focus and anger as he pours all 3 months of non-stop training into his fists. Without any warning, Mu Gung explodes forward like a bull, sprinting straight at Mu Jin with a full power charge. Both of them explode into motion at the same time, roaring as they sprint straight at each other. Mu Jin closes the distance first, slipping past Mu Gung's guard and crashing into his chest, catching him totally off guard. Before Mu Gung can react, Mu Jin's fist rockets in, all that 1 week of secret training focused into a single, brutal punch aimed right at his weak spot. Mu Gung fires a heavy hook, but Mu Jin ducks under his arm and shoots in low toward his body. Everyone watching freezes. The disciples and even the instructor stare in shock as Mu Jin slips past that unbeatable punch. Mu Jin crashes in close, grabbing Mu Gung's legs and waist, going for a clean takedown, while thinking he can't go all out with proper modern martial arts on another kid. The MC thinks back to his modern fighting days, realizing most of his techniques are lethal if he goes all out. So he filters through them in his head, picking one move that even a kid Mu Jin's age could survive. Back to the fight. Mu Jin ducks low, wraps Mu Gung's legs and full-on tackles him, lifting him clean off the ground. Mu Jin's tackle follows through, and Mu Gung gets flipped clean over, crashing to the ground before he even understands what happened. The moment they hit the floor, Mu Jin snakes his legs and hands around Mu Gung's arm, locking it in before the guy can even struggle. In just about a second, Mu Jin fully secures an armbar. Mu Gung screams in pain. The crowd goes silent, and everyone realizes the weak kid just ended the spar instantly. The older disciples explode, shouting at Mu Gung to break free, furious that a Shaolin disciple is getting locked down like that. The younger monks panic and scream Mu Gung's name, stunned that the guy they thought was unbeatable got taken out so fast. Mu Gung lies on the floor, trembling in pain, face twisted in humiliation, while everyone realizes the truth. He's completely subdued. Mu Gung's face is twisted in pain as his arm is bent the wrong way. He's freaking out, thinking, what is this? This shouldn't be happening. What is he even doing to me? The older disciples finally snap out of their shock and start yelling from the sidelines, shouting random advice like, use your legs and roll out of it, even though none of them actually know how to escape it. From above, we see Mu Jin calmly holding the armbar while Mu Gung writhes. The disciples realize from experience alone, whatever this move is, it's a clean joint lock, and Mu Gung is completely trapped. Mu Gung's arm is fully locked, veins popping as the pressure keeps climbing. His face twists in pain, but he's still too stubborn to tap. Mu Jin leans in, voice going cold. If Mu Gung keeps fighting it, that arm's snapping. He tells him to just surrender. The senior monks are losing it, screaming at Mu Gung to get up and break free like, no way you're losing to a kid who's barely trained. Meanwhile, Mu Jin tightens the armbar and calmly warns him. If he puts in a bit more force, that arm's getting dislocated and Mu Gung might end up crippled. Mu Gung's brain is frying. His seniors are yelling at him to escape, but his body knows the truth. One wrong move, and his arm is done. So he's stuck there shaking in pain. Mu Gung's teeth are grinding, veins popping as the disciples scream his name, begging him to hold on. The pain wins. Mu Gung lets out a full-on scream, while Mu Jin keeps the armbar locked in, pinning him to the floor. Mu Jin finally loosens his grip, looking a bit startled himself, while the watching monks stare at him in shock, realizing the weak kid just made Mu Gung tap out. Mu Jin instantly releases the armbar and jumps back in a panic, shouting that he already let go and that it was his mistake. The second-class disciples hurry over to Monk Hai-Yung, sweating and stammering his name, clearly freaking out about Mu Gung's condition. Hai-Yung stares at the scene with a tense face, thinking out loud, unsure what to do now that Mu Gung might actually be injured. We see senior monks massaging Mu Gung's arm and shoulder, trying to ease the pain from the submission. Mu Jin kneels beside Mu Gung, supporting him. He's worried, checking his condition, while the adults in the background look guilty and tense. A clear result is shown. Mu Jin is declared the winner. Mu Jin stares at Mu Gung with a complicated expression, realizing he actually won, but still more concerned about the guy he just put in an armbar. Mu Jin's prize from a match is a secret manual, Chain Punch, a close combat art from the 8 Extremities style. It's all about using every hard part of the upper body, fists, elbows, shoulders, to drive straight through an opponent's guard. At point-blank range, this style is built to overwhelm in a burst, dropping the enemy before they even realize what hit them. The narration cuts in, pointing out how Mu Gung got his arm grabbed and locked without even putting up proper resistance. We see the full scene of Mu Gung twisted up on the floor, trapped in Mu Jin's weird-looking grappling move as everyone watches in shock. After the match, Mu Gung is sitting on the ground bawling, while Mu Jin kneels behind him, patting his shoulder, trying to calm him down. Mu Gung sobs while walking away, ranting that Mu Jin rushed him from the start and used some bizarre move instead of the proper fist technique. Mu Jin walks beside him, patting his back, pretending to comfort him. Mu Gung suddenly roars that he could beat anyone in a fair fight, puffing his chest like a sore loser. Mu Jin smiles slyly behind him, hyping him up just to keep him calm. From a distance, the 2 second-class monks watch as Mu Jin hugs the crying Mu Gung and slowly leads him away across the courtyard. Both seniors sniffle awkwardly, realizing that they basically made 2 kids beat each other up. Mu Jin's comforting Mu Gung when a senior monk interrupts, saying the sore loser actually has a point. The senior lays down this rule of Shaolin. If you're sparring inside the temple, you're only supposed to use Shaolin martial arts. Mu Jin just stares at him, baffled, thinking how absurd that logic is after he literally just won fair and square. The senior monk, still shaken, demands to know why Mu Jin didn't use the official chain punch technique. Mu Jin fires back, saying if he'd gone with chain punch, the duel would have turned into a brutal slugfest where both of them got hurt, so he chose the fastest and safest way to end it. Mu Gung sits on the floor, sniffling and sulking, while the adults insist Mu Jin is in the wrong for winning without using proper Shaolin martial arts. The senior disciples try to argue back, but Mu Jin fires right back, calling their logic nonsense and shutting them up on the spot. The second-class disciples grumble among themselves. They hate it, but they can't deny it. Shaolin's famous chain punch just got hard countered by a newbie using some unfamiliar grappling move. One of them clenches his fist. Deep down, he admits the truth to himself. Mu Gung lost fair and square, and they're all just refusing to accept it. A senior monk sweats nervously, imagining how this loss might make everyone doubt Shaolin's martial arts. The new disciples look shaken and start murmuring among themselves, as if wondering whether they should even stay in Shaolin. The senior monks whip their heads toward Hai-Yung for help, but then freeze, startled by something happening off-screen. The head monk steps forward with a calm smile, basically announcing that Mu Jin's way of fighting actually fits Shaolin's true spirit. All the other monks blow up in shock, eyes wide like no way that kid actually won. Mu Jin stares at the elder, stunned but trying to look composed, thinking that this old monk really just acknowledged his victory. Haiyung walks past Mu Jin and casually drops a bomb. Mu Jin's move only worked because Mu Gung's level is trash tier. Mu Gung just stands there, shattered, realizing he's being called a loser in front of everyone. Then Haiyung lays down the real lesson. Martial arts aren't for flexing on fellow disciples. They're meant to crush actual evil and the demonic monsters out in the world. Outside the Shaolin gates, the head monk declares that he'll personally demonstrate the true essence of Shaolin martial arts. In front of the gathered disciples, he rolls up his sleeve, muscles tightening as he prepares to show the power said to crush even demonic masters, and orders a massive boulder to be brought. The rock hits the ground with a thud. He reaches down, fingers digging into the stone as veins bulge along his forearm, ready to display overwhelming strength. The disciples roll in a massive boulder and slam it down in the courtyard, dust exploding around its base. The kids stare wide-eyed at the rock, realizing the senior monk is actually going to demonstrate his real martial arts on it. Keycap 3. The monk steps up beside the boulder and plants his foot firmly on the ground, readying himself to show them Shaolin's true technique. The head monk stands beside a massive boulder, palm resting on it. He announces that he'll show them the real power behind the chain punch they're learning. He inhales deeply, muscles tightening. The air around him ripples as he gathers strength. His eyes flare, and his fist rockets forward wrapped in blazing energy, unleashing a devastating chain punch straight at the boulder. The head monk roars and drives his whole body into the punch, yellow robes whipping like a banner behind him as he slams into the massive boulder. His fist connects, veins bulging and impact, light exploding outward, rock and dust blasting from the point of contact. When the shockwave clears, he's standing firm, arm still extended, wrapped in blazing golden energy, while chunks of shattered stone fly past him. The young monks erupt into cheers, eyes shining as they watch the display of power. Everyone stares at the shattered boulder, chattering in awe about the chain punch and dreaming they might reach that level one day. One disciple stands frozen, staring wide-eyed at the monk's arm, stunned by just how overwhelming that strength really is. Mu Jin stares at the shattered boulder, heart racing. In his mind, this is what true martial arts looks like. He imagines the same power fired into a distant cliff, a single blow drilling a tunnel straight through the mountain. The vision grows wilder. A blade wrapped in that force cuts through a tide of enemies, and one focused punch detonates a towering foe in a blazing shockwave. Mu Jin steps forward and raises his hand, stopping Haiyung from leaving. Haiyung pauses and turns his head, a bit tense, unsure why the kid called him. Mu Jin simply points at the rubble of the shattered boulder, face full of confused disbelief. Haiyung is speechless after being called out for contradicting his own no-harm teaching. The older disciples realize it too and go quiet, feeling awkward and guilty. Everyone gathers around the shattered boulder, while Haiyung awkwardly agrees and tries to move on from the situation. After the demonstration, the training hall goes quiet, and by morning rumors about the match are everywhere in Shaolin. Arhat Hall leader Hyun-sung hears the report that Mu Jin defeated Mu Gung with just one move. Haiyung confirms it to his master, and they agree that Mu Jin is clearly no ordinary child. Haiyung explains that Mu Jin may be arrogant, but no one practices the chain punch more seriously than him. Hyun-sung calmly points out what Haiyung is really afraid of. Mu Jin is training so hard to dissect the chain punch and expose its weak points. Haiyung falls silent, a bead of sweat running down his face as he realizes his master has hit the mark. Hyun-sung hesitates and begins to express his doubts about Mu Jin. He wonders if Mu Jin might actually be a spy sent by an unorthodox sect or the demonic cult. He imagines the possibility more seriously, his suspicion focusing entirely on the boy. Cut to class time. The instructor is chanting, while Mu-jin sits confused, thinking how ridiculous that spy idea sounds. Hyun-sung dismisses the spy suspicion, saying Mu-jin is just a flashy but new disciple and not worth panicking over. He decides they'll simply keep an eye on the boy for a while, just as something suddenly catches his attention. The elders start overthinking Mu-jin. Hyun-sung guesses he must be from some prestigious martial family, and Ha-young decides those strange exercises are secret family techniques. In the end, they convince themselves Mu-jin is trying to prove his father's style is superior to Shaolin's thousand-year legacy, when in reality, Mu-jin would probably faint if he heard how far off they are. Hyun-sung worries Mu-jin will grow even more arrogant after defeating Mu-gung and wonders how to handle him. His master calmly lifts his teacup, thinking it over. After a sip, he decides they'll hand Mu-jin over to Biob Gang to deal with him. The elders debate what to do with Mu-jin and are startled when Biob Gang's name comes up. By night, they settle it. Biob Gang will join Arhut Hall and be the one to deal with Mu-jin. Meanwhile, the regular disciples finish their duties and head to bed, not knowing a dangerous new figure has just been assigned to their hall. One monk spots something ahead from behind a pillar, and his face goes stiff. He panics and tells the others they should take a different path. The group nervously peeks around the corner, asking if he saw a ghost. The boys peek from behind the wall and spot a figure alone in the courtyard. Biob Gang stands shirtless in a low horse stance, muscles flexed, steam rising as he trains. The three monks keep hiding and whisper among themselves, confused about why Biob Gang is practicing here at night. Biob Gang trains like a maniac non-stop at night. The other monks watch, jokingly calling him the mad dog of the discipline court. Biob Gang, the strict mad dog senior who's been harshly drilling juniors for years, is now being transferred from the discipline court to the Arhut Hall. So the kids freak out about having to live under him again. The disciples explain that Biob Gang plans to visit every hall to study Shaolin's rules before returning to the discipline court. He's known as the protector of rules, a strict role model who refuses to demand anything he doesn't follow himself. Because of that, he trains far more than others, grinding his basics non-stop until even his knees are wrecked from the effort. Biob Gang's knees are wrecked, and only internal energy lets him even stand. He accepts that pain as part of tempering his body and mind. After over 30 minutes in horse stance, he straightens up, gasping, and focuses on Mu-jin. Biob Gang labels Mu-jin in his head, a troublesome genius worth molding. He vows to personally hammer a proper Shaolin mindset into the kid. Next morning, the disciples tense up as Biob Gang steps out in front of them. Morning assembly at Arhut Hall. Biob Gang appears in front of the gathered trainees, shocking everyone. Mu-jin stands in line with the others, relieved he's on time as the kids realize Biob Gang is now part of their hall. Biob Gang casually greets the group and takes his place as their new senior, the strict rules fanatic of Arhut Hall. Mu-jin stares at Biob Gang's ripped body, thinking he looks like a battle-hardened soldier. The nearby monks quietly panic, worried that this strict mad dog joining Arhut Hall will make their lives miserable. Watching their reactions, Mu-jin instantly understands why everyone is so tense around Biob Gang. Biob Gang, the infamous second-class disciplinarian, steps in as their new overseer, and Mu-jin quietly takes note. Morning drills begin like any other day, and he brushes it off as not my problem. A moment later, everyone drops into horse stance, legs burning as training really starts. Biob Gang decides to know the enemy and himself before correcting Mu-jin. He studies Mu-jin's horse stance in detail. Leg width, straight back, hips pushed out, toes forward, carefully analyzing where the problem actually is. Biob Gang copies Mu-jin's stance exactly and tries it himself. He follows the inhale down, exhale up rhythm to test the secret. The pain in his legs is the same, so he assumes Mu-jin's method is just a lazy way to dodge real training. Biob Gang decides Mu-jin is slacking and moves in to correct him. But Mujin calmly tells him his stance is wrong. Biob freezes, surprised, while Mujin looks up at him, waiting for him to explain what exactly he's doing wrong. Mujin decides he'll have to teach this musclehead properly from start to finish. As Biob copies the stance, every bend of his knees makes a nasty cracking sound. Mujin realizes those knees are already wrecked, and, as a trainer, he can't just ignore it. Biob Gang remembers his role as the disciplinary master and realizes how much authority he holds here. Mujin instantly decides it'd be smart to get this rules monster on his side. Before he can scheme further, Biob Gang calmly points out that copying his stance with injured knees will only wreck his body, and tells Mujin to trust him and follow his guidance instead. Biob makes Mujin sink into a deep stretching lunge while the others watch, confused. He calls it a tendon extension technique, using the pose to loosen and relax Mujin's damaged knees. Mujin explains that doing this stretching lunge as a warm-up will soften movements and take pressure off Biob Gang's bad knees. He tells him to repeat the move in short intervals, basically doing 3 sets. Since Biob has already tried it once, Mujin has him start the sequence properly. Mujin massages Biob Gang's knee, asking if it feels better. Biob screams in pain from even light pressure. Mujin realizes Biob's knees are badly damaged from years of brutal overtraining. Biob Gang is shocked that the massage hurts at first, then realizes his knee suddenly feels lighter and refreshed. Mujin pats his leg, satisfied that the treatment worked. Without giving him a break, Mujin says they paused mid-routine and immediately tells him to get up so they can continue to the next round of rehab training. Mujin shoves Biob Gang back up, insisting they continue training. Biob Gang is stunned by how pushy this kid is. The two of them move off together, teacher being dragged by this student, while the others watch. The watching monks are totally confused about what kind of relationship those two even have. Cosmos Simulator. I created a universe from scratch. Meanwhile, the narrator explains who Biob Gang is: a rules-obsessed enforcer of the discipline court, feared as the Mad Dog. All the second-class disciples know from experience how extreme and relentless he is about discipline. Biob Gang's juniors are shocked that the Mad Dog is suddenly training side by side with a new kid. Mujin calmly plans more sets, then brings up Biob Gang's earlier squat and starts correcting his form so it won't ruin his already damaged knees. Mujin corrects Biob Gang's stance, telling him to use a light mini squat to ease pressure on his knees. He says he'll turn it into a simple exercise routine. Step 1. Slightly bend your knees and slowly sit into the stance. First, he tells him to sit using only his thighs and glutes, not his knees. Then he has him stand back up using the same muscles, repeating the motion as a full rep. After finishing the set, Biob Gang's legs are burning, but his knees feel okay, so Mujin lets him take a short break. Biob Gang notices his knee pain has clearly eased after the new squats. Mujin immediately shifts the session to calf training, guiding him like a pro coach. Mujin's past life in a modern gym, calmly training tough, soldier-type clients despite their fierce looks. Flashback. At the gym, the soldier-type client is totally soft to praise, grinning while the trainer flatters him mid-bench press. Back at Shaolin, Mujin walks with Biob Gang, complimenting how fast he fixes posture, while Biob Gang laughs proudly about his long years in the temple. The other monks watch from a distance, whispering that Mad Dog is acting strange and wondering if he's actually gone crazy. Hyun gets so stressed watching those two that he just chants to calm himself and gives up on interfering, sending everyone off for breakfast. After training, Mujin pulls Biob Gang aside and reminds him to always use these warm-ups before any lower body practice so his knees don't break down again. Biob Gang pretends to just understand, but in his head he's convinced. After feeling the warm-up, stretches, and massage himself, he decides to follow Mujin's program seriously. He admits it. Mujin's training methods are insanely effective. Biob Gang cycles through Mujin's routine and is shocked how well it works. His usual knee pain is almost gone, and his legs feel properly stretched. Impressed, he asks Mujin if these techniques were passed down by his family. Convinced no ordinary kid could come up with this, he assumes Mujin comes from some extraordinary martial family. Biob Gang assumes Mujin's techniques are secret skills passed down in his family. Mujin realizes the misunderstanding, remembers how crazy he acted earlier, and decides to roll with it. He openly claims the techniques as his family's art, and Biob Gang completely buys it, admiring him even more. Biob Gang admits Mujin's method really helped his knees, but reminds him that, in martial arts, Shaolin's 1,000-year legacy comes first and hopes. Mujin will also grow stronger as a Shaolin disciple, not just rely on his family's techniques. Mujin accepts Biob Gang's advice and ends the session. He excuses himself and leaves after thanking Biob Gang for the training. Biob Gang then turns to his junior, suggests they go eat together, and the two head off for breakfast. Hayoung suddenly appears behind Biob Gang, radiating pressure. Startled, Biob Gang rushes over, apologizing for his behavior. He explains he tried Mujin's method to know his enemy, and asks Hayoung what he thinks of it. Biob Gang chats with another monk about Mujin and recalls his experience. From the way Mujin treated his knees, Biob Gang guesses Mujin isn't from a martial clan, but from a family of physicians. He gets ready to explain his reasoning in detail. Biob Gang finally admits that years of harsh training have wrecked his knees. He explains he hid the injury so his seniors wouldn't worry and his juniors would never see him as weak. In a flashback, we see how even the disciples who've trained beside him for over a decade never realized how bad his condition really was. Biob Gang explains that Mujin immediately noticed his hidden knee damage and taught him exercises that don't strain it. Hayoung jumps to the conclusion that Mujin is from some elite physician clan, then despairs inside, thinking this one monster talent might overturn Shaolin's entire training system. Biob Gang steps in before the elders can panic anymore and volunteers to handle Mujin himself. He says he'll win the kid over first, then slowly teach him proper Shaolin training instead of forcing him. Hayoung thinks it over, then agrees to this plan and decides to leave Mujin in Biob Gang's care for now. Hayoung leaves Mujin in Biob Gang's care, and training resumes later that afternoon. During the Buddhism lesson, Mujin is fighting serious post-breakfast sleepiness. His face turns purple from holding it in, and he can barely stay focused as the food coma hits him. The morning lesson moves on from chain punches to the next stage of practice. The head monk announces they'll now start training internal energy, showing how true power comes from combining inner and outer strength. Two senior disciples step forward in front of everyone, ready to demonstrate the new internal energy technique. The disciples are told to sit in the lotus posture, and Mujin realizes he doesn't even remember what that is. Up front, the senior monk fumbles for a second, then drops down and crosses his legs as it comes back to him. Both demonstrators settle into full lotus, straighten their backs, and close their eyes as the class is told to focus only on breathing and enter meditation. Biob Gang closed his eyes and drew in a long breath through his nose. He guided the air downward, focusing on its path through his chest and into his core. Blue internal energy flared around his seated body, wrapping him in a swirling aura as he entered proper meditation. Hearing they'll finally learn real martial arts, Mujin is over the moon and drops in a position right away. The other kids copy him, all fired up to try internal energy for the first time. After nothing but basics and chain punches, this new technique gives every young monk fresh motivation to train. They finally start learning Shaolin's 1,000-year martial art, and everyone imagines shattering boulders like Hayoung. Sitting in lotus position, they follow his voice and keep breathing in and out, focusing hard. In the middle of it, Mujin suddenly pauses, frowns, and realizes something about this training feels off.